She stepped into the Jiu-Jitsu academy wearing a modest brown belt. The arrogant instructor smirked, called her weak, and challenged her to prove herself. Nobody was prepared for what happened next. She defeated him in just 14 seconds. But this ordinary-looking woman carried a secret that would transform everything. Rebecca Morgan adjusted her brown belt in the parking lot, drawing in a calming breath as she studied the gleaming glass facade of Elite Combat Academy. The autumn sun bounced off the windows, momentarily dazzling her eyes. At 38, with her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, she appeared nothing like what most people imagined when they pictured a martial artist. "This one's for you, Grandpa," she whispered softly, her fingers touching the weathered fabric of her belt. The brown belt she'd deliberately chosen for today, while her black belt remained safely hidden at home. 3 months earlier, Rebecca had made a promise to her dying grandfather, the man who'd taught her jiu-jitsu since she was 6 years old. He wanted her to help restore the true spirit of martial arts that was being lost to ego and intimidation. For 30 years, Master James Morgan had trained her in their family dojo, away from the competitive circuit, eventually awarding her a black belt that few people knew existed. "The essence of jiu-jitsu is disappearing, Becky," he'd told her, his weathered hand gripping hers with surprising strength. "It's becoming about dominance, not personal growth. Promise me you'll help bring it back to what it should be." Today marked the beginning of fulfilling that promise. After hearing countless accounts of Elite Combat Academy's hostile atmosphere, especially toward women, Rebecca had devised a simple test. She would enter as a newcomer to the area, claiming to be a brown belt, and document her treatment. She'd done her homework. The head instructor, Gabriel Torres, had built his reputation on creating champions through what he called aggressive weeding out. His social media overflowed with videos of intense sparring sessions that often crossed the line into harassment. As she gathered her gym bag from the passenger seat, her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Sarah appeared. "Camera ready in the locker room. Good luck." Sarah, already inside posing as a regular member, would capture video evidence of whatever transpired. They weren't seeking public humiliation. The footage was for a presentation Rebecca was preparing on inclusivity in combat sports. With one final glance at her grandfather's photo tucked in her wallet, Rebecca squared her shoulders and walked toward the entrance. Her heart rate remained steady. A lifetime of training had taught her to control her nerves. "Remember," she told herself, "this isn't about winning or proving anything. It's about exposing the truth." As she pulled open the heavy glass door, the familiar sounds of bodies hitting mats and the distinctive smell of athletic tape and sweat enveloped her. She approached the front desk where a muscular young man barely glanced up from his phone. "I'm here for the advanced class," Rebecca stated, her voice confident but unassuming. "I just moved to the area." The test had begun. The receptionist gave Rebecca a skeptical once-over. "Advanced class is for brown and black belts only," he said, eyeing her worn gi and humble demeanor. "I'm a brown belt," Rebecca replied evenly, gesturing to her belt. "Trained for about 15 years. He raised an eyebrow, but nodded toward a clipboard. "Sign the waiver. Locker rooms are through there. Class starts in 10. Rebecca signed using her mother's maiden name, Rebecca Collins, maintaining her anonymous status. As she made her way to the women's locker room, she noticed the facility's impressive equipment: competition-grade mats, strength training equipment, and walls decorated with medals and champion photos. Inside the locker room, Sarah pretended not to know her, focusing on tying back her blonde hair while speaking in hushed tones. "Tara's just arrived. He's in rare form today. Already made 2 guys sit out for insufficient intensity during the intermediate class." Rebecca changed quickly, securing her brown belt and removing all jewelry except a simple wooden bracelet. Her grandfather's gift when she earned her black belt. She noticed a few other women preparing for class, all notably muscular, and wearing expressions that suggested they had something to prove. New face. A tall woman with a purple belt approached. I'm Dina. Rebecca. Just moved here. Thought I'd check out the local scene. Dana's smile didn't reach her eyes. Word of advice. Taurus doesn't think much of female practitioners above blue belt unless they've medaled nationally. Claims we lack natural aggression. So be prepared.
Thanks for the heads up, Rebecca replied carefully, keeping her expression neutral despite the inner spark of anger. When Rebecca stepped onto the mats, the atmosphere shifted immediately. The dozen or so advanced students, predominantly men, eyed her with expressions ranging from curiosity to dismissal. A tall, powerfully built man with a facial scar stood at the mat's center, his black belt wrapped precisely around his waist. Gabriel Torres, in his early 40s, had the confident posture of someone accustomed to dominance. He stopped mid-sentence as Rebecca bowed before stepping onto the mat, a traditional sign of respect many of his students had already abandoned. Well, what do we have here? Torres said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Ladies' self-defense class is on Thursday, sweetheart. Several students chuckled. Rebecca maintained her composure, bowing formally. I'm here for the advanced class. Brown belt, 15 years of training. Tara's smile widened, revealing perfect white teeth that contrasted with his calculating eyes. Is that so? Well then, let's see what you've got. Line up by rank. Torres barked, and the students scrambled into position. Rebecca took her place among the other brown belts, all men, all at least 30 pounds heavier than her. Sarah, stationed in the corner with her phone inconspicuously angled toward the class, caught Rebecca's eye briefly. The camera was rolling. Today we're working triangle escapes, Torres announced, scanning the line. I need someone to demonstrate with. His eyes landed on Rebecca with deliberate slowness. Our new friend can help me. Rebecca stepped forward, maintaining a neutral expression. This was standard procedure, using newcomers as demonstration partners. But the glint in Tara's eyes suggested he had more in mind than just demonstration. So you claim 15 years of experience, Tara said as they faced each other in the center of the mat. Where did you train? Morgan Jiu-Jitsu Academy, she replied honestly, her grandfather's home dojo. Torres frowned. Never heard of it. Competition record? None, Rebecca admitted. My teacher believed in Jiu-Jitsu as self-improvement, not sport. A few snickers rippled through the class. Torres didn't bother hiding his contempt. Ah, one of those spiritual journey types. Well, this is an academy that produces champions, not philosophers. Without warning, Torres shot in for a takedown. Though she could have easily countered it, Rebecca allowed herself to be taken down, maintaining her cover while still displaying competent defense. See that, everyone. Torres addressed the class while establishing side control. A real brown belt would have sprawled properly. This is what happens when you train at strip mall dojos. The insult to her grandfather's teaching stung, but Rebecca reminded herself of the purpose of this test. She made a technical escape, not too flashy, but solid enough to earn respect from a fair instructor. Torres, however, wasn't impressed. Lucky move, he muttered. Then louder, let's try something else. For the next 10 minutes, Torres continued the demonstration, gradually increasing the intensity and technical difficulty. Rebecca carefully measured her responses, showing enough skill to justify her brown belt rank, but holding back her true capabilities. Honestly, Torres finally said, standing up and addressing the class while Rebecca was still on the ground, this is what's wrong with Jiu-Jitsu today. People walking around with belts they haven't earned. He turned to Rebecca, extending a hand to help her up. When she took it, he yanked harder than necessary, causing her to stumble slightly. Too weak, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. Women like you should stick to yoga. Rebecca's eyes flashed momentarily before she regained her composed expression. The test was yielding exactly the evidence she'd expected, and her grandfather's concerns were being validated with every passing minute. After the demonstration, Torres paired everyone up for drilling. Unsurprisingly, Rebecca found herself matched with Keith, a muscular brown belt who outweighed her by at least 70 pounds. "Don't worry," Keith said with a smirk. "I'll go easy on you." As they practiced the designated technique, a triangle escape, Rebecca noticed Torres hovering nearby, watching her with critical eyes. "More pressure, Keith," Torres instructed. "She needs to feel what a real triangle is like." Keith increased the pressure to uncomfortable levels, beyond what was necessary for drilling. Rebecca adapted smoothly, using proper technique to relieve the worst of it while appearing to struggle appropriately. "Your defense is all wrong," Torres interjected, kneeling beside them. "Here, let me show you." He repositioned her arms in a way that actually made the technique less effective, a test Rebecca recognized immediately. Either he was deliberately sabotaging her, or he didn't know the technique as well as he claimed. "Thank you, sir," she said, hiding her knowledge behind a mask of gratitude. She caught Sarah's eye across the room, knowing this interaction was being captured. Halfway through the class, Torres clapped his hands for attention. "Let's make this interesting. Round-robin sparring. 30-second rounds. Winner stays on." This was unusual for a technique class, but the students seemed accustomed to Torres' unpredictable teaching style. They formed a circle around the mat, excitement building. "Collins," Torres pointed at Rebecca. "You're up first." Against, he scanned the room and smiled coldly. "Me." The room fell silent. It was uncommon for an instructor to spar with a new student during their first class, especially in such a public, pressure-filled format. "Unless you're not up for it," Torres added, challenge dripping from every word. Rebecca stepped onto the mat, bowing respectfully despite the openly unfair challenge. "I'm happy to train, sir." Torres didn't bother bowing back. "Start standing. Let's see what you've got." They circled each other, Torres moving with the confidence of someone who expected an easy victory. Rebecca maintained proper form, watching his movements carefully. "Attack me," Torres goaded. "Come on, brown belt. Show us what you've learned in 15 years. When Rebecca executed a textbook single-leg takedown attempt, Torres countered with unnecessary force, slamming her to the mat harder than was appropriate for training. "Too weak," he announced to the class while controlling her from top position. This is why women shouldn't be given upper belts. They simply lack the physical attributes for effective jiu-jitsu. As he transitioned to a kimura grip, applying pressure to Rebecca's shoulder, a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. He was going too far, too fast, with someone he believed couldn't defend properly. Rebecca knew she had a decision to make. She could feel Torres applying the kimura with excessive torque, the kind that tears rotator cuffs and ends training careers. A flash of memory hit her, her grandfather teaching her this very submission when she was 12, emphasizing control and respect for one's training partner. Jiu-Jitsu is about using leverage to overcome strength. Master Morgan would say, but with that power comes responsibility. Never use it to hurt or humiliate. Torres was doing precisely what her grandfather had warned against, using technique as a weapon for ego rather than as a tool for growth. She could feel the students watching intently, some uncomfortable with their instructor's obvious intent to hurt, others seemingly enjoying the spectacle. Through the corner of her eye, Rebecca saw Sarah shift position, ensuring she had a clear view of what was unfolding. The evidence was being recorded, but at what cost? If Rebecca continued her charade, she risked actual injury. "Tap," Torres growled, cranking the submission harder. "Unless you're too proud." Rebecca made her decision in that split second. This had gone far enough. While maintaining her cover was important, protecting herself and sending a message about what jiu-jitsu should truly represent mattered more. With a subtle shift of her hips, Rebecca created just enough space to relieve the pressure on her shoulder. Torres, feeling her movement, responded by committing more weight forward, exactly as she anticipated. "You're only making it worse for yourself," he grunted. Rebecca closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she thought. "I know this wasn't the plan, but sometimes a lesson needs to be taught." In one fluid motion, she executed a perfect technical escape that her grandfather had invented, a move known only to those he had personally taught. Torres, caught by surprise at the sudden reversal, found himself momentarily off balance. That moment was all Rebecca needed. She transitioned smoothly from defense to offense, capturing Torres' arm in a textbook armbar. Before he could react, she had established perfect position. Her legs locked across his chest, his arm extended between her thighs, her hips raised to create the leverage that made Jiu-Jitsu so effective. Torres' eyes widened in shock, his confidence replaced by confusion and the first flickers of fear. He hadn't expected this, not from someone he had dismissed so thoroughly. "What the?" he started to say, but Rebecca had already made her adjustment, applying just enough pressure to make her point without causing injury. The entire class fell silent, watching in disbelief as their seemingly invincible instructor found himself caught in a perfect submission by the woman he had just been ridiculing. The moment of truth had arrived. Time seemed to slow down as Rebecca maintained the armbar position. The gym had fallen completely silent, the only sounds being Torres' increasingly rapid breathing and the faint electronic hum of the air conditioning. 1 second. Torres' initial shock gave way to desperate resistance. He attempted to muscle out of the submission, using his considerable strength to try and pull his arm free. 2 seconds. 3. 4. Rebecca adjusted minutely, maintaining perfect technique against his raw power. This was the fundamental principle of Jiu-Jitsu. Leverage and technique overcoming brute force. 5 seconds. "Let go," Torres growled, too quietly for most of the class to hear. But Rebecca caught the panic edging into his voice. 6. 7. She could have applied more pressure, could have forced an immediate submission, but that wasn't her grandfather's way. Master Morgan had always emphasized giving opponents a chance to acknowledge defeat with dignity. 8 seconds. Torres' attempts to escape grew more frantic, less technical. He twisted his body, trying to roll away from the pressure, but Rebecca adjusted flawlessly, maintaining the submission while transitioning with him. 9. 10. The students watching had begun to murmur, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. Dana, the woman from the locker room, had a small smile forming at the corners of her mouth. 11 seconds. "Tap," Rebecca said calmly, applying a fraction more pressure. Enough to send a clear message without causing injury. "It's okay to tap." 12. Torres' face had turned crimson, partly from physical exertion, partly from wounded pride. His eyes darted around the room, seeing his students witnessing his defeat. 13. With one final futile attempt to muscle out, Torres exhaled sharply as he realized he was truly caught. The fight drained from him visibly, his body going slack with acceptance. 14. The sound of his palms slapping the mat echoed through the silent gym, the universal signal of submission in Jiu-Jitsu. Rebecca immediately released the hold, rolling away and returning to a kneeling position, bowing respectfully as she had been taught. "Thank you for the training opportunity," she said formally, extending a hand to help Torres up, the traditional gesture of reconciliation after a submission. Torres ignored her hand, pushing himself up and adjusting his now disheveled guy. His face was a storm of conflicting emotions, humiliation, anger, confusion, and beneath it all, a reluctant glimmer of respect. "Lucky move," he muttered, though no one in the room believed it. Rebecca remained kneeling, maintaining perfect etiquette despite Torres' breach of protocol. The rest of the class stood frozen, unsure how to react to seeing their seemingly invincible instructor defeated so efficiently. 14 seconds. That's all it had taken to shake the foundations of Torres' carefully constructed kingdom. The gym remained in stunned silence for several heartbeats before erupting into hushed conversations. Rebecca rose to her feet, maintaining her composure, while Torres stalked to the edge of the mat, adjusting his belt with sharp, angry movements. "That was incredible," Keith said, his earlier condescension replaced with genuine admiration. "Where did you learn that transition?" Before Rebecca could answer, Torres interjected, his pride wounded, but his instructor's authority reasserting itself. "It was a fluke. Back to drilling, everyone. Collins, take a break. You look tired." The dismissal was transparent, an attempt to minimize what had just happened. But Rebecca simply bowed and stepped off the mat. As she walked toward her water bottle, she noticed several students watching her with newfound interest. Sarah approached, phone now tucked away, playing her part as a curious classmate. "That was amazing. I've never seen anyone submit him." "He underestimated me," Rebecca replied simply. "It happens sometimes." "That wasn't just a brown belt move," came a new voice. Rebecca turned to see Dana standing beside her, eyes narrowed with suspicion and admiration. "That was high-level stuff. Competition level." Rebecca took a careful sip of water. "My grandfather had some unique approaches to traditional techniques." From across the room, Torres called the class back to order, his voice noticeably tighter than before. "Partner up for situational sparring. Collins, since you're so confident today, you can work with Jason." He gestured toward a young man with a black belt, clearly one of his favorite students based on the numerous competition photos featuring him on the wall. "He's setting you up," Dana whispered. "Jason was a national champion last year." Rebecca nodded. "It's okay." As she approached Jason, she could see uncertainty in his eyes. He had witnessed her submission of Torres and was recalibrating his expectations accordingly. "Start from closed guard," Torres instructed. "Jason on top. Go." What followed was a technical display that left no doubt about Rebecca's skill level. Rather than dominating with submissions, she demonstrated perfect defensive techniques, countering each of Jason's attacks with precise, efficient movements that spoke of decades of training. After 5 minutes, Torres clapped his hands sharply. "Enough. Everyone, water break." He approached Rebecca with narrowed eyes. "Who are you really?" he demanded, voice low enough that only those nearby could hear. "No brown belt moves like that. What's your game here?" Rebecca met his gaze calmly. "I told you. I trained with Master James Morgan." Tara's eyes widened with sudden recognition. "Morgan, the James Morgan. Is that a problem?" "You're his granddaughter," he stated, not asked. "Rebecca Morgan." "Yes," she admitted. "I am." The revelation of Rebecca's identity changed the atmosphere in the gym instantly. Though not widely known in commercial jiu-jitsu circles, James Morgan was a legend among serious practitioners. One of the first Americans to receive a black belt in Brazil during the 1960s, renowned for his technical innovations and philosophical approach to the art. James Morgan refused to commercialize his knowledge, Torres said, his tone now carrying reluctant respect. He turned down millions to keep his teachings private. He believed jiu-jitsu was about personal growth, not profit, Rebecca replied evenly. Torres studied her with new eyes. "So the brown belt was my choice today. I earned my black belt 15 years ago." A ripple of whispers spread through the students gathered nearby. Sarah, still recording discreetly, captured it all. "But why come here like this?" Torres asked, genuine confusion replacing his earlier hostility. Rebecca took a deep breath. This was the moment her grandfather had prepared her for, the opportunity to speak truth to the very attitudes threatening the art they loved. "My grandfather died 3 months ago," she began, her voice steady despite the emotion behind her words. "His last wish was for me to help preserve what jiu-jitsu truly stands for: respect, technical excellence, and using strength to protect, not dominate." She gestured around the gym. "He've heard about academies like this one,
where new students are hazed rather than welcomed, where women are automatically considered less capable, where the focus is on breaking people down instead of building them up. Tara's jaw tightened defensively. We produce champions here. At what cost? Rebecca countered. How many potential black belts have you driven away? How many women have you discouraged? How many people who could have found healing through Jiu-Jitsu instead found only more trauma? The questions hung in the air, uncomfortable but necessary. Several students nodded slightly, their own experiences silently validating her words. I came here to document the problem, Rebecca continued, not to embarrass anyone. This test, coming in as a brown belt, was to experience firsthand how newcomers are treated. She turned to address the entire class. Jiu-Jitsu saved my life after a difficult childhood. It taught me confidence when I had none, showed me strength I didn't know I possessed. Everyone deserves that opportunity, not just those who already fit a certain mold. Torres stood silent, clearly processing her words. His expression had softened slightly, pride giving way to reflection. Your grandfather, he finally said, was the reason I started Jiu-Jitsu. I saw a video of him when I was a teenager. The way he moved, so efficient, so calm under pressure. Rebecca saw something unexpected then, vulnerability beneath Tara's carefully constructed armor. I think, he said quietly, we have a lot to talk about. 6 months later, Rebecca pushed open the glass doors of Elite Combat Academy, now renamed Morgan Elite Jiu-Jitsu, and smiled at the transformation before her. The walls, once covered exclusively with competition medals, now also displayed the principles of Jiu-Jitsu penned by her grandfather. Respect, humility, technical excellence, community. Torres, who had spent a week training with Rebecca after their initial encounter, had embraced the opportunity to return to the roots of the art he loved. His technical skill had never been in question. Only his teaching approach needed refinement. Good morning, Professor Morgan, called a teenage girl practicing drills in the corner. One of many female students who had joined since the academy's culture shift. Rebecca waved, setting down her bag and greeting Sarah, now a full-time staff member documenting the academy's journey for a series on positive martial arts communities. Torres emerged from his office, his demeanor noticeably changed from their first meeting. The aggressive edge had been replaced by confident calm. Ready for the seminar? He asked, gesturing to the group of instructors from other academies gathering for Rebecca's workshop on inclusive teaching methods. Always, she replied, adjusting her black belt, the one she now wore proudly, with her grandfather's name embroidered alongside her own. As the visitors settled on the mat, Rebecca caught sight of her grandfather's photo, now hanging prominently by the entrance. She could almost hear his gentle voice. The true victory in Jiu-Jitsu is not when you defeat others, but when you help them rise. She took her place at the front of the class and bowed deeply. The real work was just beginning. This story reminds us that true strength isn't about dominating others, it's about lifting them up. Every day, we have opportunities to challenge discrimination and create more inclusive communities. Have you ever witnessed someone being underestimated based on their appearance? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community, where we celebrate quiet strength, real struggles, and unexpected victories. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.